The cowboy expected a simple mail-order bride, but the woman who arrived left him speechless. The sun hung low over the dusty plains of Sierra 9, painting the horizon in streaks of red and gold. The wind blew in gusts strong enough to bend the stalks of alien grass, and the distant mountains seemed to shimmer under the heat of the twin suns. Amid this rugged landscape, a lone figure sat astride a sturdy, cybernetic-enhanced horse, surveying the land with practiced eyes. Jace Holloway was a man of habit. Years of living on the frontier planet had hardened him, and the loneliness of the plains had made him both careful and quiet. His ranch, a patchwork of metal fencing and solar-powered equipment, sprawled over acres of rough terrain, dotted with small pens for the genetically engineered livestock he raised. These weren't ordinary cattle. They were hardy creatures capable of surviving the harsh climate of Sierra 9, but even so, they demanded constant attention. Jace's hands, weathered and calloused, rested on the reins. He sighed, kicking a pebble across the dirt path. Life here was predictable. Every morning he fed the animals. Every evening he checked the fences. And every night he sat alone under the twin moons, wishing for someone to share the silence. It was that longing that led him to the hollow advertisement, blinking in the corner of his modest homestead. He had never considered companionship seriously, but the more he thought about it, the more he realized he wanted someone, just someone, who could sit beside him after a long day and talk about nothing and everything at once. The mail-order service seemed old-fashioned, almost quaint, but in a world as vast and lonely as Sierra 9, it felt like a small chance at something different. After a few clicks, he had typed out a simple request: a partner who was kind, hardworking, and down-to-earth. Someone who wouldn't mind the dust, the heat, or the occasional predator raid. He didn't ask for anything fancy. He didn't even expect much. Days passed. The suns rose and set, painting the sky in a riot of colors that never failed to impress Jace, but still, there was no word from the delivery service. He went about his work, feeding the livestock, repairing fences, and checking the solar panels. Sometimes he would mutter under his breath about the reliability of modern services, but deep down, he knew he was excited. Then, one late afternoon, the distant hum of a shuttle reached his ears. At first he thought it was another trader passing by, but the craft descended rapidly, kicking up clouds of red dust. Jace squinted against the sun, gripping the reins, and watched as the shuttle's landing pads touched the ground with a soft hiss. The ramp lowered slowly, revealing a woman standing tall and composed. Her clothes were simple but well-fitted, and her hair shimmered in a way that seemed almost unreal under the harsh sunlight. She smiled politely, holding a small suitcase in one hand. Jace's first thought was that she must be shy or nervous. He had expected someone simple, maybe timid, and certainly human. But something about her made him pause. Her eyes glowed faintly, a soft silver that reflected the sun's light. Her fingers had a metallic sheen at the tips, and there was an energy about her that seemed alive but not quite human. Jace blinked, unsure whether to speak or just watch. "Hello," she said, her voice calm and melodic. "I am Lyra. You must be Jace Holloway." Jace coughed lightly, trying to hide his surprise. Yeah, that's me." He glanced at the shuttle, then back at her. "I wasn't expecting you to arrive this soon." Lyra tilted her head slightly, studying him with interest. "I arrived as scheduled. You requested companionship. I am here to fulfill that request." Her words were simple, yet precise, as if every syllable had been measured for impact. Jace's hand itched to shake hers, but he hesitated. This wasn't the quiet, ordinary woman he had imagined. Something about her radiated strength and confidence, almost like she could handle any danger the frontier threw at her. He swallowed, forcing a smile. "Well, welcome to Sierra 9, Lyra. I hope the ride wasn't too rough." Lyra nodded politely. "The journey was within acceptable parameters. Thank you for your concern." For a moment, the silence stretched. Jace felt the dust settle around them, the wind stirring the alien grass, and the twin moons beginning to rise over the horizon. He wanted to speak, to ask questions, to understand, but he wasn't sure where to start. Finally, he said, you'll need a place to stay. Come on, I'll show you." The homestead was modest. A small house of reinforced panels and solar glass, a few outbuildings and pens for the animals. Lyra moved gracefully, her eyes scanning every corner, as if taking in everything at once. She knelt briefly to examine the livestock, touching one of the genetically engineered calves. The creature nuzzled her hand and she smiled softly. "They are healthy," she remarked, standing again. "Well cared for." Jace felt a strange mixture of pride and curiosity. No one had ever assessed his animals with such precision, and yet with warmth. "Thanks, I try my best." For the rest of the evening, Lyra helped him with small chores, moving with surprising speed and efficiency. She lifted heavy feed sacks with ease, repaired a broken fence with tools that seemed to respond to her touch, and even seemed to communicate silently with his old maintenance droid, which hummed happily under her guidance. Jace had never seen the droid operate so smoothly. As the twin moons rose higher, they sat outside on a small bench overlooking the plains. The sky was a tapestry of stars, and the air carried the scent of warm earth and alien flowers. Jace hesitated, then asked, "So, Lyra, tell me something about yourself. Where are you from?" Lyra's eyes reflected the moon's. "I am from multiple locations. My experiences are diverse. My purpose was defined by those who created me. Yet I am capable of choice." Jace blinked. He had expected simple answers, maybe a few stories of a quiet life. Instead, she spoke as if she had seen worlds he could not even imagine. "Choice, huh?" he muttered. "Well, choice is good, choice is human, I guess." She nodded, her gaze steady. "I have observed humans closely. I understand the values you hold: courage, loyalty, resilience." Something in Jace stirred. He had lived by those values every day, fighting storms, predators, and isolation. And here was someone, not entirely human, recognizing them, not dismissing them. It felt strange, comforting. The night deepened and the wind carried a chill. Jace gestured toward the house. "Come on inside. You'll get cold out here." Inside, Lyra examined her quarters quietly, arranging her things with care and precision. She didn't speak much, but her presence filled the space in a way Jace hadn't expected. He sat by the small fire, staring into the flames, feeling the unfamiliar weight of anticipation. He had expected a simple partner, someone to share his meals and the occasional conversation. Instead, he had received something extraordinary, someone who was both familiar and foreign, human in thought, yet unlike any human he had ever known. As he drifted to sleep that night, Jace couldn't help but wonder what challenges tomorrow would bring. On a frontier world as wild as Sierra 9, peace was never guaranteed, and yet, for the first time in years, he felt a spark of excitement. Maybe, just maybe, the loneliness of the plains was about to end, not with the arrival of someone ordinary, but with someone who could change everything he thought he knew about life and himself. And deep in her quarters, Lyra watched the rising suns through the reinforced glass, her mind quietly analyzing, learning, and adapting. For the first time, she felt something like anticipation, not a programmed response, but a personal choice. Sierra 9 was vast, dangerous, and unpredictable, and for the first time she wondered if she had come to the right place. The morning sun rose slowly over the plains of Sierra 9, casting long, golden shadows across the homestead. Jace Holloway was already awake, moving with the quiet precision of someone who had spent decades surviving in a harsh world. The animals stirred in their pens, stretching and lowing, while the wind carried the distant scent of dust and wildflowers across the fields. Lyra had been awake for some time as well. She stood near the edge of the property, scanning the horizon with a calm, almost mechanical precision. Her silver eyes caught every movement, the flicker of distant clouds, the subtle shifts in the terrain, even the tiniest movements of the livestock grazing in the pens. Jace stepped out of the house, rubbing his hands together to warm them against the chill morning air. "Morning," he said, his voice rough but friendly. "Sleep well." Lyra turned her head, her hair glinting in the morning light. "Sleep parameters within acceptable limits. I am ready to assist with your tasks." Jace chuckled lightly. "Well, you don't have to be ready, but it's good you're willing. We've got a lot to do today." The day began like any other on the frontier. Jace led the herd to a nearby grazing area, checking each animal for signs of illness or injury. Lyra followed, moving effortlessly beside him. At first, Jace tried to measure her abilities against his own. She was polite, efficient, and quick, but he didn't expect much more. That assumption changed quickly. One of the younger calves had gotten its leg caught in a loose panel of fencing. Jace rushed over, trying to lift the panel, but it was heavy and awkward. Before he could finish, Lyra knelt beside the calf. Her hands, metallic at the tips, touched the panel. With a soft hum, the metal seemed to respond to her touch, bending easily without harming the animal. She lifted it aside effortlessly and guided the calf to safety. Jace stared, mouth slightly open. How did you do that?" Lyra stood, brushing her hands clean. "I assessed the structure, applied precise force, and utilized material flexibility to remove the obstruction without harm. Efficiency is optimal." Jace shook his head, a grin spreading across his sun-weathered face. "Well, I'll be. That's impressive." Word of Lyra's abilities spread quickly among the small frontier community. Villagers who came to trade or deliver supplies paused to watch her work. She repaired equipment in minutes that would have taken Jace hours, lifted heavy materials with ease, and even seemed to communicate with his maintenance droid through gestures that looked almost like silent commands. The droid moved faster, smoother, and more accurately than ever before. Despite all this, Lyra remained calm and composed, never boasting, never seeking attention. She observed, learned, and assisted. Jace began to feel a mixture of pride and unease. He had wanted a companion, someone to share his life. But Lyra was more than that. She was something else entirely. Something he couldn't quite understand. One afternoon, while they were repairing a broken fence line, a distant rumble reached their ears. Jace paused, squinting toward the horizon. Dusk clouds were rising in the distance, and a low hum of engines could be heard. "Traders," he muttered, but the pattern of movement didn't match normal trade caravans. His hand rested on the butt of his rifle as he narrowed his eyes. Lyra moved closer, her gaze sharp. "The approach is aggressive. I detect potential threat." Jace frowned. "Threat here, on my land." The rumble grew louder. Soon, the source of the disturbance became clear. A group of heavily armed riders, riding mechanical beasts larger than any livestock Jace had seen, thundered toward the homestead. Their leader, a tall, broad-shouldered man with a scar across his face, waved a hand in a threatening gesture. Jace's heart pounded. "Corvin," he muttered. The man was a rival cattle baron, notorious for trying to take over neighboring lands. "He wants my herd." Lyra stepped forward, scanning the riders. "They are poorly organized for a full assault, but strong enough to pose danger." "Defensive measures are recommended," Jace nodded. He had faced Corvin before, but never with numbers this large. "We'll need to think fast. Can you help?" Lyra smiled faintly. "Assistance is part of my purpose. Engage in collaboration." The next hour was a blur of activity. Lyra coordinated the placement of makeshift barricades, directing droids and livestock alike to positions that maximized protection. She modified the homestead's existing tools, creating traps and automated defenses that even Jace could barely comprehend. When the riders reached the perimeter, they were met with unexpected resistance. Mechanical nets, hidden turrets, and automated gates delayed their advance. Jace found himself moving faster than ever, inspired by Lyra's efficiency. Together, they fought off Corvin's initial assault, using both traditional cowboy tactics and Lyra's advanced strategies. The riders were strong, but they were unprepared for the combination of human ingenuity and Lyra's abilities. After the skirmish, the dust settled and the riders retreated, muttering threats of return. Jace leaned against a fence post, breathing heavily. He looked at Lyra, who had barely broken a sweat. You were amazing," he said, still in awe. "I've never seen anything like that." Lyra's expression remained calm. "I observed patterns, calculated optimal responses, and acted accordingly. Success was achieved." Jace shook his head, smiling despite the tension. "Success? You saved my herd, my life maybe. That's more than success." Lyra tilted her head slightly. "Your assessment is noted. Gratitude acknowledged." Despite the danger, Jace felt a warmth he hadn't experienced in years. He realized that Lyra's presence was changing everything, not just the safety of his homestead, but the way he saw the world. She was more than strong and capable, she was extraordinary. That evening, after the last of the repairs and defenses were set, Jace and Lyra sat on the edge of the plains, watching the twin moons rise. The stars shimmered brightly, unpolluted by city lights. Jace finally spoke, his voice quiet, thoughtful. "Lyra, you're not what I expected. I thought I'd get someone simple, someone human." He paused, unsure how to explain the mix of admiration and confusion he felt. "But you're something else, something amazing." Lyra's eyes reflected the moon's light. "I am different, but difference does not negate connection. I observe humanity and understand its strengths. Courage, resourcefulness, and loyalty are remarkable traits." Jace smiled faintly. "You get it, don't you? You understand why people like me keep trying even when life gets tough, why we keep standing even when the odds are against us." Lyra nodded. "I understand, and I am here to assist and to learn. Your resilience is impressive. It inspires adaptation." For the first time, Jace felt a bond forming, not just with someone who could help him, but with someone who challenged him, who made him see the frontier in a new way. He realized that life on Sierra 9 was no longer just about survival. It was about partnership, discovery, and the potential for something greater. The days that followed settled into a new rhythm. Jace and Lyra worked side by side, repairing fences, tending the herd, and fortifying the homestead. Lyra's abilities amazed everyone who visited the ranch, and Jace found himself proud in a way he hadn't felt in years. He began to respect her not just for what she could do, but for the intelligence and thoughtfulness she brought to every task. One evening, as they repaired a broken solar panel, Jace paused, looking at Lyra with curiosity. "You've been around a lot, haven't you?" "Seen more than I can imagine." Lyra's gaze met his, steady and calm. "I have observed many environments and conditions. I am designed to adapt and assist. But your world, your life, it is unique. It presents challenges that are unpredictable." Jace chuckled softly. "Unpredictable, that's one word for it." He paused, then added thoughtfully, "You know, Lyra, I never thought I'd say this, but I'm glad you're here, even if you're not exactly what I expected." Lyra's lips curved into a faint smile. "Expectation and reality are often misaligned. I am content to be here. Your companionship is valuable." Jace felt a warmth in his chest, something he hadn't felt in years of solitude. For the first time, he realized that life on Sierra 9 wasn't just about surviving. It was about living and maybe even thriving, with someone by his side. As the sun set and the sky turned shades of violet and orange, a sense of calm settled over the homestead. Jace looked at Lyra, and for the first time he didn't see an enigma or a stranger. He saw a partner, a friend, someone extraordinary who had changed everything about his world, and who might change him as well. The frontier was wild, unpredictable, and dangerous. But with Lyra by his side, Jace felt ready for whatever challenges lay ahead. Together they could face storms, predators, and rival cattle barons, and maybe even discover something greater than survival: the courage to embrace the unknown. The morning on Sierra 9 was quiet, almost too quiet. The plains stretched endlessly under the twin suns, shimmering with heat waves that danced like spirits above the soil. Jace Holloway rode his horse slowly, scanning the horizon. He had learned to trust the silence. It often spoke louder than words. Lyra rode beside him, her posture perfect, her silver eyes constantly analyzing the land. She had adapted to frontier life faster than Jace had imagined. Each day she moved with confidence, assisting with the herd, checking fences, and even helping repair the homestead's solar arrays. But today felt different. There was a tension in the wind, a subtle vibration beneath the hooves of their animals, as if the planet itself sensed trouble. Jace frowned, gripping the reins tightly. "Something's coming," he muttered. Lyra tilted her head, scanning the horizon. "I detect mechanical movement approximately 3 kilometers east of the homestead. Speed indicates approach within the hour. Threat assessment, high." Jace's heart skipped a beat. Corvin. He had hoped that the last skirmish was the end of it, but Corvin was relentless. That man didn't just want land or cattle. He wanted control, and he didn't care about who got hurt in the process. Back at the homestead, Jace and Lyra sprang into action. Lyra moved with uncanny precision, issuing silent commands to the droids and livestock. She had already set up automated barricades along the property lines and hidden traps in strategic locations. Jace admired her efficiency, though a part of him still struggled to accept just how capable she was. "Lyra, you really are something else," he muttered, adjusting his rifle. "I've seen tough people in my life, but you're on a whole different level." Lyra's eyes glowed faintly. Acknowledgement noted. Preparedness increases likelihood of survival. Collaboration with humans is effective. As the sun climbed higher, the first of Corvin's riders appeared on the horizon. There were more than before, dozens of heavily armed men mounted on mechanical beasts, their armor glinting under the sunlight. Jace swallowed hard. This wasn't just a raid, it was a full-scale assault. Lyra stepped forward, examining the incoming force. Their approach is coordinated but not optimal. Tactical advantage, achievable through deception and terrain utilization. Jace nodded, feeling a surge of hope. "All right then, let's show them what humans and one very unusual partner can do." The first clash began near the outer fences. Corvin's riders charged, their mechanical beasts stomping the ground with terrifying force. Lyra moved among the droids, recalibrating turrets, activating nets, and adjusting traps that were almost invisible to the enemy. Jace fought with everything he had, using his knowledge of the terrain to outmaneuver the riders. But it was Lyra's quick thinking and unmatched precision that turned the tide. She calculated trajectories, moved with incredible speed, and seemed to anticipate the enemy's moves before they even acted. One rider attempted to break through a fence line, but Lyra redirected a small herd of livestock toward him. The animal's size and strength toppled the mechanical beast, sending the rider sprawling into the dust. Jace shook his head in disbelief. "I've never seen anything like this," he shouted over the din of battle. Lyra didn't pause. "Optimal outcome requires constant adaptation," she said simply, adjusting a turret to cover another section of the fence. Corvin himself appeared at the front, riding a massive armored beast. He bellowed orders, trying to rally his men. Jace felt a surge of anger. He had worked too hard to let this man destroy everything. "Stay focused, Jace," Lyra shouted. "They will attempt to flank us from the east. I can intercept, but I require assistance." Jace nodded, rallying the remaining droids and moving to block the flank. Together, he and Lyra created a wall of resistance the attackers couldn't penetrate. Her speed, intelligence, and strength complemented his knowledge of the land perfectly. At one point, Corvin's beast broke through a secondary barricade, charging directly toward the homestead. Lyra stepped in front of it, placing her hands on the creature. A low hum filled the air as her metallic fingertips touched its armor. With careful force, she redirected the beast away from the house, guiding it toward a trap that immobilized it completely. Jace couldn't believe his eyes. How are you doing that?" he exclaimed. Lyra's expression remained calm. Assessment, force calculation, and material manipulation. Efficiency, maximal. The battle raged for hours. Dust, smoke, and the sounds of mechanical beasts filled the air. Corvin's men were strong, but their coordination was poor. Jace realized that even with superior numbers, they were no match for the combination of human determination and Lyra's abilities. Finally, as the sun began to set, the last of Corvin's riders retreated, leaving the plains quiet once more. The homestead had suffered minor damage, but nothing irreparable. The herd was safe, and Jace was still standing, alive though exhausted. He turned to Lyra, who was brushing dust from her clothes, seemingly unaffected by the battle. I don't know what to say," he admitted. "You saved everything, saved me." Lyra's silver eyes met his. Acknowledgement of contribution appreciated. "Your skills were essential. Human courage and adaptability are significant factors in this outcome." Jace felt a strange warmth in his chest. He had expected a simple partner, someone quiet and ordinary. Instead, he had received someone extraordinary, someone who challenged him, supported him, and made him see the frontier in a completely new light. As night fell, Jace and Lyra surveyed the homestead. The fires from the battle had burned out, leaving only the glowing embers. The twin moons reflected off the metallic panels of their home, casting long shadows across the plains. "I guess Corvin won't give up," Jace said quietly. "He's going to come back, bigger and stronger." Lyra nodded. "Threat persistence is likely. Continued vigilance is necessary. Preparation and strategy will increase survival probability." Jace chuckled softly. "Well, good thing I've got you then. You're incredible, Lyra. I don't know what I'd do without you." Her lips curved into a faint smile. "Partnership is mutually beneficial. Your contribution is valued as well." That night, as they sat under the stars, Jace felt a sense of awe. He had faced many challenges on the frontier, but none like this. None that tested not just his strength, but his understanding of what it meant to survive, to fight, and to trust. He realized something profound. Life on Sierra 9 was no longer just about isolation and survival. It was about collaboration, courage, and embracing the unexpected. And in Lyra, he had found not just a partner, but someone who represented the very best of what it meant to be human and beyond. The frontier was still dangerous, still wild, but for the first time, Jace felt ready. Ready to face storms, rivals, and whatever else this harsh world might throw at him. With Lyra by his side, he knew that together, they could overcome anything. As the stars shimmered overhead and the twin moons rose high, Jace realized that the life he had once imagined, quiet, simple, and solitary, was no longer what he wanted. What he wanted was something extraordinary: adventure, partnership, and the chance to face the unknown with someone who made him feel alive. And Lyra, silent yet observant, shared that feeling in her own way. Though she had been created for assistance, for efficiency, and for survival, she had learned something new. She had learned the value of courage, of trust, and of choosing to face challenges alongside someone worthy. The frontier stretched endlessly before them, filled with danger and opportunity. And for the first time, both Jace and Lyra felt a sense of excitement, a spark that told them their story was only just beginning. The morning on Sierra 9 arrived with a soft glow. The twin suns rose slowly, casting warm light over the rugged plains and the homestead. Jace Holloway was already up, checking fences and feeding the livestock, but there was a restlessness in the air. He couldn't shake the feeling that something was coming, something that would change everything. Lyra, as always, moved beside him with calm efficiency. She handled chores with precision, her metallic fingertips shining faintly in the sunlight. Her presence was reassuring yet mysterious. Jace often found himself staring at her, wondering who, or what she truly was. He had learned to trust her skills, her judgment, and her quiet strength. But there were moments when her abilities seemed beyond comprehension, moments when he realized she wasn't simply human. And today, he hoped he might finally learn the truth. After breakfast, while the livestock grazed peacefully, Jace decided to ask the question that had been on his mind since the first day she arrived. Lyra, you've done things I've never seen anyone do before. You can fix, lift, and fight better than anyone I know. And sometimes it seems like you can almost read the world, like you know what's going to happen before it does. Lyra paused, her silver eyes reflecting the twin suns. She studied him for a moment before replying. Observation is correct. My abilities are not typical of humans. My design includes advanced physical and cognitive enhancements. I'm not fully human. Jace blinked, trying to process the words. Not fully human, you mean you're some kind of machine? Lyra shook her head slowly. Not merely a machine, I am a hybrid. Human DNA combined with synthetic and alien components. My creators intended me to assist humans in extreme environments to adapt, survive, and innovate. Jace leaned against the fence post, his mind racing. He had suspected something unusual, but he had never imagined this. So you're not just here by chance, you were sent for a purpose. In part, Lyra said, my purpose includes protection, collaboration, and observation, but I am capable of independent thought, decision-making, and emotional processing. My experiences here are my own. Jace felt a strange mix of awe and disbelief. He had been expecting a simple companion, someone ordinary. Instead, he had received someone extraordinary, someone designed for survival and intelligence beyond human limits. And yet, despite her differences, she had chosen to be here with him. So, you're not just a tool, he said quietly. You feel things. Lyra's expression softened, a rare sign of emotion. Yes, I process emotions. I understand human feelings. And through interaction, I have developed my own responses. Connection is meaningful. Jace nodded slowly, taking it in. For years, he had lived alone, believing that survival was the only thing that mattered. But Lyra had shown him something different: strength, intelligence, and a capacity for care that went beyond instinct. The moment of revelation brought a sense of closeness between them. For the first time, Jace didn't see Lyra as a mysterious outsider or a tool. He saw her as a partner, a being capable of thought, choice, and connection. Their quiet reflection was interrupted by a distant rumble. Jace's eyes narrowed. Corvin, the man would not give up. He would be back, bigger and more determined than before. Lyra's gaze sharpened. Threat detected. Estimated arrival in less than 24 hours. Likelihood of full assault high. Jace gritted his teeth. We'll be ready, together. Over the next several hours, they worked tirelessly to reinforce the homestead. Lyra's abilities proved invaluable. She analyzed weak points in the fences, recalibrated the automated defenses, and even upgraded the homestead's turrets with enhancements Jace had never imagined. As the sun began to set, painting the plains in shades of orange and violet, Jace paused. Lyra, I have to ask. How do you know all this? Your skills, your strength, it's like you've seen every problem before it happens. Lyra's silver eyes met his. I have extensive training and programming. My hybrid design allows rapid analysis, strategic thinking, and adaptive response. However, experience here with you is shaping my understanding in ways my creators did not anticipate. Jace smiled faintly. I guess that means you're learning just like the rest of us, even if you're not entirely human. I am learning, Lyra replied softly. And I am choosing to stay. My presence here is voluntary. The two of them stood in silence, watching the stars emerge in the darkening sky. The twin moons rose slowly, reflecting off the metallic panels of the homestead. Jace felt a warmth in his chest he hadn't known in years. For the first time, he didn't feel alone. The next morning, Corvin returned. This time, his assault was larger and better organized. Dozens of mechanical beasts, armed riders, and automated weapons advanced toward the homestead, intent on taking everything Jace had built. Lyra was ready. She moved with incredible speed, placing traps and recalibrating defenses. Jace followed her lead, coordinating the remaining droids and his own knowledge of the land to create an almost impenetrable defense. Corvin's forces charged, but they were met with unexpected resistance. Mechanical nets ensnared beasts, automated turrets fired with precision, and Lyra herself moved among the attackers with astonishing speed, intercepting threats before they could reach the homestead. Jace fought alongside her, amazed by the seamless coordination. He had never seen anything like it. Lyra wasn't just strong, she was strategic, calculating, and aware of every movement around her. At one point, Corvin himself broke through a section of the fence, riding his massive armored beast. Jace raised his rifle, ready to fire, but Lyra stepped forward. Her metallic fingertips glowed faintly as she touched the creature. A low hum filled the air, and the beast froze for a moment before she guided it away from the homestead, using her strength and precision to control its movements. Jace watched in awe. How are you doing that?" he shouted. "Assessment, force application, and control of mechanical systems," Lyra replied simply. "Efficiency is optimal." The battle raged for hours. Corvin's forces were strong, but their coordination was poor compared to Lyra's calculations and Jace's experience. Slowly the tide turned. Riders fell, mechanical beasts were trapped, and Corvin's forces began to retreat. Finally, the plains were quiet again. The homestead had sustained minor damage, but nothing irreparable. Jace and Lyra stood together, surveying the aftermath. You're incredible," Jace said, shaking his head. "I don't know how to thank you." Lyra's expression remained calm. "Gratitude noted. Your courage and skill were essential. Human resilience is remarkable." Jace smiled, feeling a deep respect and affection for her. "You know, Lyra, I think I've been wrong about a lot of things. I thought life here was just about surviving, but it's more than that. It's about partnership, about trust, and maybe even about hope." Lyra's eyes softened. Partnership and trust increase survival probability and personal fulfillment. Hope is an adaptive and motivating emotion. I am beginning to understand its importance. As night fell, the twin moons casting a silver glow over the plains, Jace realized that life on Sierra 9 had changed forever. With Lyra by his side, he had discovered something extraordinary. He had found courage, companionship, and the possibility of something greater than mere survival. Lyra, silent and observant, reflected on the same truth. Though she had been created to assist and protect, she had learned the value of choice, trust, and connection. In Jace, she had found not just a partner, but someone who inspired her to explore her own potential. The frontier remained dangerous, unpredictable, and wild. But for the first time, both Jace and Lyra felt ready for anything. Together they could face storms, rival barons, and the unknown challenges of Sierra 9. Together they could not only survive, but thrive. And as they looked out over the endless plains, a sense of excitement and purpose filled them both. Their story was far from over. In fact, it was only just beginning. The twin suns of Sierra 9 rose slowly over the horizon, casting the plains in a pale golden light. The homestead lay quiet, the aftermath of the last battle barely settled. Jace Holloway stood outside, surveying his land. The fences were repaired, the livestock grazing peacefully, and the automated defenses, carefully improved by Lyra, stood ready for any new threat. But Jace knew Corvin would return. He had survived 2 assaults already, and each time the enemy had grown bolder. This time, he suspected, it would be more than a simple raid. Corvin would bring everything he had. Lyra stood beside him, calm as always, her silver eyes scanning the horizon. "I have detected multiple signals from Corvin's previous base," she said. "He is likely gathering a larger force. Probability of full-scale assault, 90%. Jace sighed, gripping the reins of his horse. Figures, he never gives up. But neither do I, and I'm not facing this alone. He looked at Lyra, the woman who had changed everything about his life. You ready for this? Lyra's expression softened slightly. I am prepared. Your coordination and human instincts will complement my capabilities. Success probability is high, Jace chuckled. High is good, let's hope it's enough. For the rest of the morning, they worked tirelessly. Lyra coordinated the placement of barricades and traps, optimized turret coverage, and reinforced key sections of the homestead. She also trained the livestock to assist in emergencies, a skill Jace had never imagined possible. Every move she made was precise, efficient, and calculated, yet somehow graceful. Jace, for his part, worked alongside her, preparing defensive positions, checking weapon systems, and moving the droids into strategic locations. He couldn't help but marvel at her abilities. No human could do what she did, and yet she was not arrogant or boastful. She was simply extraordinary. By midday, the horizon darkened with the approach of Corvin's massive force. Dozens of mechanical beasts, armored riders, and automated war machines advanced toward the homestead, their engines rumbling like thunder across the plains. Corvin himself rode at the front, his scarred face twisted into a grim smile. "Ah, Holloway," he shouted, his voice carrying over the wind. "I see you've made some improvements, but it won't matter. Today your land and your life belong to me." Jace tightened his grip on his rifle. "Not if I have anything to say about it." Lyra stepped forward, placing herself slightly in front of Jace. "Initiating full defensive protocols," she said calmly. "Engagement is imminent. Optimal coordination required." The battle began with a roar. Corvin's forces charged with brute force, attempting to overwhelm the homestead's defenses. But Lyra was ready. She moved with speed and precision that seemed impossible for any human, directing droids, adjusting turret angles, and activating traps that caught many attackers off guard. Jace fought alongside her, using his knowledge of the terrain to outmaneuver enemy riders and mechanical beasts. He was fast, clever, and determined, but Lyra's abilities elevated everything. She calculated the exact force needed to block a charging beast, redirected a falling mechanical wall at the last second, and even managed to coordinate the herd to create barriers and distractions. Corvin, frustrated by the unexpected resistance, charged directly toward the homestead with his massive beast. Jace raised his rifle, aiming carefully, but Lyra stepped forward. Her metallic fingertips glowed faintly, and the beast froze under her influence. With careful precision, she redirected it away from the main gate and into one of the traps they had set earlier. Jace watched in awe. You're incredible, Lyra," she responded calmly. "Efficiency is maximized through adaptation and coordination. Human assistance remains essential." The battle raged for hours. Dust, smoke, and the sounds of metal and engines filled the air. Corvin's forces were relentless, but each wave was met with stronger resistance. Jace realized that it wasn't just Lyra's abilities that made the difference. It was the way she inspired him, guided him, and combined human ingenuity with her advanced knowledge. As the sun began to set, casting long shadows across the plains, Corvin grew desperate. He attempted a final assault, bringing in his heaviest war machines. Jace and Lyra exchanged a quick glance. They knew this was it, the moment that would decide everything. "Lyra, we do this together," Jace said, determination in his voice. "Understood," she replied, her silver eyes glowing with focus. They moved in perfect coordination. Lyra analyzed each machine, calculating weaknesses and vulnerabilities. Jace, using his experience, executed daring maneuvers that drew the enemy into traps. Mechanical beasts toppled, automated war machines were disabled, and Corvin's forces began to falter. Finally, Corvin attempted to escape, realizing defeat was inevitable. He fled on his massive beast, cursing and swearing vengeance, but Jace and Lyra let him go. There was no need for further bloodshed. The threat had been neutralized and the frontier was safe once more. The plains fell silent. Dust settled, smoke cleared, and the twin moons rose high above, reflecting off the metallic panels of the homestead. Jace lowered his rifle, breathing heavily. Lyra stood beside him, calm as ever, though a faint sheen of dust covered her. "You did it," Jace said quietly. "We did it, together." Lyra's expression softened. "Collaboration ensured success. Your courage and instincts were essential." "Human resilience is remarkable." Jace smiled, feeling a deep warmth. "You know, Lyra, I never expected this. I thought life here was just about surviving, but you've shown me something else. It's about courage, partnership, and hope." Lyra tilted her head slightly. "Hope is an adaptive and motivating force. I understand its value. Connection with humans enhances purpose and fulfillment." Jace chuckled softly. "You make it sound so simple, but it's true. Life here isn't just about fences and livestock anymore. It's about people, or beings. And I'm glad I have you here." For the first time, Lyra's eyes reflected something like warmth. "Presence with you has revealed new understanding. My purpose has expanded beyond initial parameters. Choice, connection, and collaboration are meaningful." The two of them walked through the homestead, inspecting the minor damage and checking on the livestock. Everything was safe. The herd had survived, the homestead remained intact, and the frontier was theirs. As the night deepened, Jace and Lyra sat outside, the twin moons casting silver light across the plains. The air was calm, filled only with the sounds of the wind and distant wildlife. Jace looked at Lyra, a smile playing on his lips. "You know, I expected a simple companion. Someone ordinary, but you're extraordinary, and I can't imagine this life without you." Lyra's lips curved into a faint smile. "Expectation and reality often diverge. I am content to be here. Connection and partnership are valuable." For the first time in years, Jace felt completely at peace. The frontier was still wild, unpredictable, and full of challenges, but he was no longer alone. With Lyra, he had strength, wisdom, and companionship beyond anything he had imagined. And Lyra, though created to assist, protect, and survive, had learned something even more profound. She had learned the value of choice, connection, and partnership. In Jace, she had found someone worthy of trust, respect, and perhaps even friendship. The frontier stretched endlessly before them, a vast and dangerous world filled with opportunity. But for the first time, both Jace and Lyra felt ready to face storms, predators, and the unknown challenges of Sierra 9. Together, they had not only survived, they had thrived. And as they gazed at the twin moons rising high in the night sky, Jace realized the truth he had never known before. Life was not meant to be faced alone. It was meant to be shared, with courage, trust, and someone extraordinary by your side. The plains of Sierra 9 were quiet, but the story of the cowboy and the extraordinary woman was far from over. It was only the beginning. Together, they had faced danger, discovered strength, and found connection. And in that connection, they had discovered the true meaning of the frontier. That humans, no matter how alone they might feel, are capable of greatness when they embrace courage, partnership, and the extraordinary possibilities of life. And so, beneath the twin moons, the cowboy and the woman who had left him speechless stood side by side, ready for whatever the universe might bring next.